So you noted that governments are required to give reports based on the recent situations, like to show that they're not violating these treaties. Are there any other ways in which this is kind of being enforced?
Yes. Um, One of the mechanisms, now you should understand that the real challenge in international human rights is not sort of the definition of what constitutes human rights. We've come significant ways since 1945 in terms of the number of treaties and spelling out what constitutes human rights. The real challenge is the implementation of it, and we don't have a great deal of effective means of holding governments to account. So what I was referring to was one of the techniques being that governments that sign on to the torture treaty are required to submit reports to an expert committee. There is an effective regional mechanism for Europe, where the countries of Europe have agreed to a regional treaty that bans torture. And so, as for the countries that have ratified that, which is a number of the Western European countries, they agree for an international body that's created under that treaty to make unannounced visits to prisons and other places of detention. So that committee sort of has the authority, and that serves as a deterrent, if you will, to engage in torture. The United Nations also has individuals who are what they call special rapporteurs. And so one of the first ones that they established was the Special Rapporteur on Torture. And Sir Nigel Rodley was the first Special Rapporteur on torture. In his previous career, he had been with Amnesty International. These Special Rapporteurs are individuals who have full-time jobs. They're widely recognized as being leading experts in their field. They're selected by the human rights body, which is governmental representatives that selects these individuals. And their mandates deal with particular human rights issues or a particular country. And so one of the ones that's probably been the most effective has been the Special Rapporteur on Torture. And they basically, one, focused the international spotlight of shame on governments that are engaged in practice, or they will raise individual cases. I'll give you an example from many years ago. Is one of our graduates, Terry Coonan, was practicing immigration law in San Antonio. And he called me, and into his office had come a client. The client was from Saudi Arabia. His brother was being tortured in Saudi Arabia. And he asked his lawyer, Terry Coonan, whether there was anything he could do to get his brother. And so Terry contacted me, and I said, well, yes, there is. Send the information to Nigel Rodley, and he will take the case up with Saudi Arabia. And so a few weeks later after that, the brother was released. He was not in very good shape, but he was alive, and then left the country. Now, Nigel Rodley would not take credit for having gotten him out, but it was clear to me that he had raised the case with the Saudi government, and governments are sensitive. And so if you can sort of say that this person that's rotting away in a jail or being tortured, that there's some international body that's interested in their welfare, that may be enough in particular cases to get an individual released. Those special rapporteurs will also make visits to countries they have to get the agreement of the government of the country to come in and to examine, to go to prisons, places of detention, but to investigate information that they have received with respect to torture going on. And I have a book series with the University of Pennsylvania Press, and one of the books that I'm excited about that will be coming out in about 9 months is by Manfred Novak, who was recently the UN Special Rapporteur on torture, and he has written a book for a general audience about his experiences as the Special Rapporteur on torture, and so it is just an excellent introduction to how this mechanism goes about its work and the impressions that he has, and how other governments have, and how various governments have reacted to the investigation that he has conducted into the practice of torture in their countries. Mm-hmm. So these individuals don't get paid anything. As I say, they have full-time other jobs, but as I had suggested, one of our challenges in the international field is how do we enforce these norms? And so we have a long way to go, but this has been one of the most effective mechanisms that has been achieved. So.
Yeah. And okay, so in general, that's like what certainly very experts in the field are doing. But is there anything that, say, if normal people feel passionately about something like this, do you think anything that they can do to maybe?
Yes, what I often tell people who ask that question, yeah, and want to get involved, who understandably don't feel well informed and don't know what to do, that the place to start is to join the local Amnesty International group, and particularly on this question of torture, because Amnesty has been for years the leading organization that has dealt with prisoners of conscience, and then it began a campaign, I think it's back in 1975, if I'm not mistaken, that they began focusing on the issue of torture and to try to get it banned. And it's fair to say that Amnesty was in good part responsible for that international treaty that was agreed to by countries banning torture. It was out of their initiative. That was one of the results. But they provide their groups with information about different countries, and then they engage in different types of campaigns, letter writing and other types of campaigns to focus on the question of torture. So yes, the anyone who wants to become involved in this issue, there's a way to do it. And I have to tell you from my own experience, it's they're just wonderful people that join their local amnesty groups that essentially want to do something to make this world better. And Amnesty has local groups in Cincinnati. They have student groups, as well as sort of adult groups, if you will. They usually are a fairly small cadre of individuals that as I say, want to sort of try to make this world better, and with the information that they are provided by Amnesty International, they're sort of able to make a contribution in this area.
All right. Okay. So those were the questions I had prepared. Is
Okay.
there anything else on the subject that you would want to add, or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
you covered. They were broad enough questions that I was able to
Yeah.
to bring in that information.
All right. Okay. Then yeah, I think you're good.
Yep.
Yeah.